What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Locked In GSW Podcast. I'm Brandon Freno. Joined by me is Corey, Mr. Sports Fanatic himself, and our other guy, Chris Polo. How we doing, fellas?
Feeling good.
A lot better than Thursday.
Oh, hell yeah, for sure. What's up for
Easily.
National? Bashar, try to get in here if you can, man. All right, so Warriors pull it off, bounce back, dominated game. God, I can't talk tonight. Warriors bounce back, win 107-88 versus Celtics. Um, let's go ahead and start from the top of the game. What did you guys see that went right for the Warriors in this game compared to game one? And what do you think? What do you think was in their mindset? Let's start with you, Chris.
Yeah, I mean, clearly they came out with more intensity on both ends. The defense was completely different really throughout the course of the whole game. I mean, we could sit here and say, okay, Boston just went cold, but I would come back with that with, Jason Tatum didn't shoot 17%. He put up 28 points today. And they went cold partly because just the Warriors are playing really good defense. I mean, Steph Curry in that third quarter too was playing some really inspiring defense. I mean, he was everywhere. Both teams shot exactly the same from three. They were both literally 15 for 17. For me, the first quarter, I was just more worried because there were so many opportunities that were just left on the table. A lot of missed layups. They also missed free throws throughout the course of the first half. So I was a little worried after the first quarter. Obviously, in the first half, it was just pretty tight in general, but the consistency on defense and just guys looked more engaged. I really love that they really rolled with Gary Payton tonight. He's a defensive weapon. He makes things happen, his energy that he plays with. And Jordan Poole, biggest thing for me tonight was Jordan Poole waking up there in that third quarter. They waited a long time to go to him in that third quarter too. Like I was sitting there like, man, I don't know if Jordan Poole's going to actually play in this third quarter. It kind of felt like Steve Kerr's kind of had enough of that and didn't really want to see that at that point the rest of the game. But when he did go back in, he immediately hit a three off the dribble. And I was like, that didn't look like the hesitant Jordan Poole I saw last game. And then they obviously closed it out with a 39-foot three-pointer to end the third quarter. And I just knew just from an energy standpoint, like that is the Jordan Poole we knew all season long. And he got 17 tonight. And that's all he needs to do. He doesn't need to go off for like 25, 30-point games. If he's giving them 17, 18 off the bench, it's going to be really tough to stop them because Golden State, obviously, they're kind of relying on Steph Curry a little too much. I need to see Clay step into that second option. I need to see him hitting those shots, not forcing the issue. But if Jordan Poole's on and Steph Curry's doing what he's doing, going to be averaging 30 the rest of the series probably, plus that defense, it's going to be really tough to stop. And also, Draymond Green only took 3 shots tonight, not 12. That was a big one. And he's had a better game offensively.
Yeah. Corey, you want to piggyback off of that?
I can piggyback. I missed the first quarter. I was driving home, long day at work, but I ended up seeing the heroics. From what I was listening to, very sloppy first quarter. Boston comes out on a pretty good run there to start. But second quarter, the Warriors started kind of getting their mojo back. Actually, by the end of the first quarter, they got their mojo back. I think they were up by 31-30 or something at the end of one. Shot selection was better. I was actually thinking of what you were saying from Thursday there, Chris. Draymond did take the 1-3 that looked kind of ugly, but the shot selection much better. The Warriors were being more aggressive with the driving. They weren't just reliant on the outside shooting tonight, which I thought was very key. And they got a lot of the Celtics in foul trouble. I know a handful of them ended up getting a couple fouls there before the half. The Warriors got in the bonus. I think they missed a couple free throws throughout the game, but for the most part, very, very solid. But as I mentioned after the game one loss, you got to put Boston on the heels, got to put pressure on them, drive at them. It seems like they're still a little tentative trying to take it all the way down because of the length of Boston. But I think the game plan was much better. a lot of open threes, penetration, pick and pop, a lot of pick and rolls in there. Just a good game all around, except maybe the first 6 minutes of the game.
Yeah, I want to go ahead and talk about the missed layups, especially in the first half. Uh, especially easy layups on top of that. What do you think went wrong there, and how did they fix it coming out in the second half? Let's start with you first, Corey.
Again, I think the majority of those happened in the first quarter, so I didn't see a lot of it. But my guess was just, oh my God, I'm so open. They just kind of go up, and every once in a while you're just sort of stuck a little too hard. It's all at the touch. And that's what makes Steph Curry, over his career just so deadly. Those little finger rolls and little flicks with the wrist, the English off the glass, makes really, really, really hard shots look extremely easy. But it was a lot of open. The ball movement was there. I think Van Gundy mentioned something where they went a lot more ISO, which I don't like as much. I like the ball movement a little bit more, but when they were getting into transition, I still think they need to push the ball down on fast breaks and be able to have easy layups. They dribble it up and then they just kind of wait for the rest of the team to come in. They got to be more aggressive on that. But with the layup thing, sometimes it's just touch a little hard. It shouldn't happen. Just like free throws. I mean, going through the playoffs, how many free throws have they missed? Steph Curry, Jordan Poole. It's one of those head scratchers, I guess. Just didn't, fortunately didn't come back and bite them today. But just stay aggressive. You probably won't be able to get the amount of calls that they have been getting in Boston, but just push the tempo. Boston likes that slow, rugged, least amount of possessions as possible. But the defense showed up, and that was the other big key. They just really locked down, and Boston's going to have to figure out a way to get your 5-6 guys in double figures in here to, I think, win this series. So Warriors are in pretty good shape now. They got to go back Wednesday and Friday and take, I think, at least one of these two to at least tie it to come back to San Francisco for Game 5 next Monday.
Yeah, Chris, you have anything to add?
I think maybe part of it, because the beginning of the game, they looked really tight. Like they were getting off to a pretty bad start. Offensively, I just felt like, here we go again, in terms of just picking right up where they left off in the fourth quarter, just looking really tight, not really able to get a clean look. And I think that they just kind of felt that intensity and how physical Boston was playing. So I feel like when they got to the paint, maybe they're kind of rushing themselves a little bit. Maybe it was kind of getting to them. But I think that they just had to settle into the game. And it's frustrating that they left those points on the board. Thank God the game was not very close at the end, because if it was, we would have been looking at those layups like serious missed opportunities there. Combined that with the free throws that they missed. So I'm not going to sit here and act like it was a wire to wire. They played great the whole time. I think that Boston just came down to earth a little bit, and that helped. But that second half was like classic Warriors in the second half. And usually they'd have like these close games in the first half. Second half, they come out in the third quarter. They were the best third quarter team in the league. I actually saw this like a little bit after the game. So in that third quarter, specifically in the last 4.5 minutes, so the Warriors actually outscored Boston 19-2. Boston only had 2 free throws in the last 4.5 minutes. They didn't have a single shot from the floor. So if they can be that kind of team coming out of halftime with those adjustments, playing with that kind of intensity, like I said, if Jordan Poole's on, if Steph Curry's still on, which I expect him to be, but on top of that, if Klay Thompson's just showing up, it doesn't have to be Game 6 Klay, but if he's just showing up, it's going to be really tough to beat them. But at the end of the day, I do feel neutral, because we're going to Boston 1-1. That's exactly what Boston's goal was to take one game at Chase Center.
Yep.
So as great as a win this was, we're still losing that battle in that instance where we didn't defend home court. They should be up 2-0. I mean, you blow a lead like that in Game 1. so badly to the point you just weren't playing defense. I didn't actually see the stat till a few days after, but 13 of the Celtics 21 threes in game one were wide open. So that is the thing that they really locked down tonight. Like Al Horford was not able to sit there and just get a bunch of wide open threes. They did give up some wide open ones, but not nearly to the same extent in game one. And that's why, even though Jason Tatum played well, you saw that shooting percentage take a big dip, but also just coming down to earth because, of course, that fourth quarter was like historic.
Yeah. Twin Empire says, do you believe the full court pressure on JT is having an effect on him during the second half?
Probably. I mean, that's the thing, is there's actually a play where Jason Tatum came off a screen and got a three pretty easily at the top of the key. And you could see Steve Kerr, I forgot who it was that was playing on the screen, but he was saying that you got to come up on that. And that's been one thing I think they've been so worried about getting blown by, because they've been getting blown by a lot. And we saw that especially earlier in the game today. It just looked like off the dribble was way too easy for Boston. I think they've been more worried about that than in their heads not really closing out on these shooters. But the thing is, Jason Tatum, to me, I still think he's going to have better games than this. Like, it got to a point where I thought Jason Tatum was going to drop 40 points tonight. He was on. I think he started like 5 of 6 from 3 or something like that. So, yeah, it probably played a factor. I think the main thing is just that people do forget the Warriors were the best defensive team in the NBA before Draymond got hurt. So you do see the two best defenses in the league. But I think the Warriors might have finished second. And the fact that they finished that high when Draymond missed that many games, like, that speaks volumes to how great defensively this team is. And also, Gary Payton actually played tonight, didn't play last game. So I think Jason Tatum's still going to have better games. I think Jaylen Brown started out very well as well. The problems for Boston today were their turnovers. I can't remember how many points we got off. I think we got 18 points off turnovers tonight. We won the game by 19, so they practically did give the game away in that aspect, because it's not like they're just throwing the ball out of bounds. They were, I don't remember how many steals. The Warriors have like 15 steals, so they're live ball turnovers. So, but I mean, you also got to give credit to Golden State for actually taking advantage. But yeah, 15 steals, like that's a difference, and it's kind of similar to game 2 of the Memphis series, when I was telling people that even though the Warriors shot so bad in that game, they had, I think it was like 18 turnovers, something like that, and 12 of them were steals for Memphis. Steals are so different from, like, committing a travel or throwing a ball out of bounds or getting a shot clock violation. You're giving the Warriors fast break opportunities, and that's just what happened tonight. So the Warriors just did a good job taking advantage of those opportunities. The last 3 quarters. The first quarter, there were a lot of opportunities that they left on the table, but after that, the defense just kept getting better and better.
Yeah, I agree. I think this game we basically gave a taste of their own medicine to Boston, and especially we only had 12 turnovers this game versus their 18, and we had
19 for Boston.
Oh, it says 18 here.
It was 33 to 15 points off of turnovers, just to give you the stat. I mean, it was a blitzkrieg of just locking down on defense and everything else.
Their defense was just like 100 times better tonight for sure. And then on top of that too, start of the fourth quarter as well, Boston already threw in their towel. They said, "Yeah, we're not getting this done." So I mean, that kind of told you something there as well. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Twin Empire says, whenever the bigs catch the ball in the post, the guards are coming down and swiping.
Yeah, you could see it with Steph Curry too. Like he was really making an effort in the post, like when Al Horford's down there, to try to get that ball out. And the rebounding was pretty even too. Like not one team dominated the boards. They shot the exact same from 3. They both didn't shoot really great from the free throw line. They both had about the same number of assists. It really was, the difference was the turnovers. Yeah, you can't be turning the ball over like that against Golden State, especially if they're taking care of the ball. Usually Golden State's averaging, I think, like almost 16 turnovers a game in the playoffs, so 12 tonight. Huge for them.
Yeah,
huge for them.
Another thing I wanted to bring out too is the fact that the hustle from Looney and especially Andrew Wiggins on the board, that was phenomenal to see. The the hustle was there. Like you could tell that they wanted this game for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, Andrew Wiggins had a really nice. I can't remember which one it was. I think it was somewhere in the third quarter, but Andrew Wiggins just made such a great effort play to come down the floor, get an offensive rebound, got a basket. He was doing that all night tonight, all night.
Yeah. I'm gonna find some of the post game interviews from the guys, just to see what they had to say. But Corey, you have anything else to say while I look for this real quick?
Yeah, we were talking about with game one how Tatum couldn't get off and had a really bad game. He comes out of the block and just starts firing. Chris, I think you were right. I think he started 5 of 6 from the outside. But having said that, we're going to expect Horford, Robert Williams III, and Marcus Smart to combine for 6 points. So, I mean, there's sort of a give and take with this, one way or the other. But I think I saw a stat after this game that the Warriors have outscored Boston in the third quarter in 2 games, like 73-38 or something. I mean, they completely dominated the third quarters. I could do the math and figure it out. I think it was something like 73-38. I mean, it's absurd. Plus 21 tonight, plus 14, I think, in game one. The difference was you saw Udoka pull the starters, I think, 2 minutes into the fourth and just said, okay, yeah, we don't have the energy, or we don't, he pretty much conceded pretty much right at the start of the fourth quarter, down 25 or whatever the deficit was. But, I mean, I've said this before, third quarter is the Warriors' quarter. I mean, yeah, okay, lollygagging. It's a close game at halftime. You blink, end of the third quarter, they're down 20. I mean, it's just transition, open threes, lockdown defense. They bury you in those 12 minutes coming out of halftime. So I think part of that is just the rest and being able to kind of figure various things out. But I think it's Steve Kerr. I think Steve Kerr has a lot to do with second half adjustments and being able to make the right maneuvers into that third quarter. So by the time their opponents realize it's already too late. Now, game one, a little anomaly there that just 15-22 or 15-23 will never happen again. You will never see a team shoot lights out like that coming back from, I can't remember, 18 points or whatever the deficit was in game one. The Warriors had them on the ropes, let them off. I think they were up by 12 going into the fourth, and before they knew it, they couldn't hit a shot. But they held Boston to like 14 points in the third quarter tonight, and that was just huge. So they just have to go back to the drawing board, make a few adjustments. Obviously, work on the layups there, and just hitting open shots. I mean, it's not even just the layups. There was a handful of open shots tonight that should have gone in. I know Wiggins, I think there late in the first half, had a three from the left wing that was about halfway in and popped back out. But with Gary Payton II now, I mean, he's back. This defense is as good as any defense I've seen in a lot of years. And when you have a team like Boston that is literally 7 deep, maybe 8 deep, you have to tire them out as best you can because they don't have the bench to be able to come in and be able to hold a lead or stay, the deficit not get too out of hand. So it's just control the pace and be able to keep putting pressure on Boston, especially in games 3 and 4.
Yeah, and I knew that the intensity, honestly, was going to be different from the very first possession of the game because Al Horford had the ball at the top of the key. Draymond was guarding him, and he just grabbed the ball, tried to rip it out of his hands, and force a jump ball. Once Draymond did that, I could tell, okay, there's a difference level in energy immediately compared to what I saw from Draymond in the first game. So I think they did a really good job of responding from a loss. I think that kind of actually put them in focus. Like, we got punked in game 1. We can't let that happen. And you can clearly see the intensity that they played with, especially from Steph Curry. I'm like in awe of the way Steph Curry played on defense in that third quarter. Like he was just everywhere. If they carry that into Boston, like Boston, I think Twin was saying it in here earlier. They've not particularly been great in terms of defending home court.
Mm-hmm.
And if Clay starts hitting shots, like I don't think Clay's going to be shooting this bad. I think the issue with Clay, a lot of it is it's going to be hard for him to get those open looks because he is more of an off the catch type of guy, and this is a really good defensive team, and they're sticking onto him. But even then, he's still getting shots up. At some point, those are going to start falling because Klay Thompson's one of the best shooters to ever play the game. So at some point, it's going to fall. So I think you have to come back 3-1. I don't want to be 2-2 and dance with these guys. You never know what could happen in the finals. You don't want to like go into game 5 and all of a sudden someone tweaks an ankle and it's 2-2 and I don't want to do that with this kind of team. I've seen too many crazy things happen in the finals when you think like there's no way anything could, turn it around. So I think that you got to grab both at Boston because Boston just won this battle in terms of we had to get one on the road. Now go take both. And if you're up 3-1, I'll be comfortable. Or I don't want to say comfortable, but more comfortable than 2-2, that's for sure. Just because this is a really good team. This is a really physical team. They've really put a lot of people on notice this year. I think one big issue for them is Marcus Smart can be a poison for them on offense. As a point guard, he just sometimes has really bad turnovers. He had a handful of bad ones tonight.
Yeah, he
boneheaded decisions as well. I mean,
and
it's not just the turnovers.
And he only finished the game with 2 points too tonight. So.
2 points. Robert Williams, the second 2 points. Al Horford 2 points. That won't happen again. No. I like where your mindset is there, Chris. I think the Warriors can certainly do it. I think it's in the Warriors' court and how they execute. I think Boston is on their heels. I know it's 1-1 and they have 2 games in Boston. And every Boston fan wants to tell us, they've yet to lose back-to-back games all series or all through the entire playoffs. Well, the Warriors are 5-0 after following a loss. So, I mean, the Warriors are in the exact same position as they are. The Warriors have outplayed Boston, in my opinion, through 7 of the 8 quarters. If you look at it throughout, I know the beginning of tonight's game was a little rough. Both these games were at home, so maybe Boston's a little bit different. But if you look at the home and road records for Boston's been a better road team in the playoffs. So how much the analytics mean anything, I don't really look at that as too much of anything. The crowd in Boston is wild. It's crazy. Boston fans are just nuts. I know we have at least one Boston fan listening. Shout out to my buddy Jim. But I think the ball is in the Warriors' corner because I think they have outplayed this team 7 of the 8 quarters. And if they can just keep the foot on the gas and just keep pushing, maybe try to bury them again in the third quarter, just take the whole thing here for games 3 and 4 on Wednesday and Friday. It's just to do everything you can to take the crowd out of these games. The players at home feed off the energy of the crowd and what have you. But if the Warriors can just come out, keep it relatively close by halftime in game 3, and then just do what you've done in the first 2 games, I don't know what Boston has for an answer. You looked at that fourth quarter, how many, Chris, you mentioned this, how many of those threes that they were just killing were wide open? Just the ball movement, lackadaisical defense, took the foot off the gas pedal, whatever it is. You have to play hard for 48 minutes. Do not let up. Don't, you have your opponent, by the throat. You don't let them gasp for air. You just you keep in there. You suffocate them. You do everything you can. The Warriors have the scoring. They have the depth. They have the defense that can lock you down. That was proven big time tonight, especially from quarters 2 and 3. They were there. And for Boston to win this, they're going to need Tatum to play on his head, Brown to play on his head, Marcus Smart to not make as many stupid, dumb turnovers, and they need a few of those role players, White and maybe what's the other Williams there to really come on.
Grant Williams,
thank you, to really play well. They need 5 guys in double figures every game to win, and that's really the long and the short of it. The Warriors can play this 9-10 deep all day long. Now you have Peyton the second back. Otto Porter, monster game, plus 28 or whatever it was.
Yep.
Just played out of his mind. They can do that on a game-to-game basis. Boston has to play more flawlessly and not turn the ball over 18 or 19 times, whatever the final numbers were. The ball is in the Warriors' court. They need to go in on Wednesday, make a statement in Boston, said, yeah, there's a reason why we went to 5 straight NBA championships. What are you going to do? How are you going to make the adjustments for game number 4? We have to come out and win this game 3, take the momentum completely out of Boston, and then, playing with house money, but try to take game 4, come back next Monday for game 5, and maybe try to close it out then. Boston has to play with less mistakes. The margin for error, in my opinion, for Boston is so slim because they don't have the depth. They don't have the collective scoring, minus your Tatum and your Brown. And, if Horford's very erratic, just like Marcus Smart. You have Robert Williams is pretty much just a big man who can block, rebound, and maybe, you get a putback, almost like a Looney. But to me, Looney just does so much more than just stand by the basket and rebound and put layups back up. So the Warriors, I think the ball is in their court, and I think they can take care of business even in Boston. Should be interesting, though.
Because it kind of reminded me, the Celtics today of, now they shot worse, I think, but it reminded me a little bit of the game that they had against Miami.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was game 3. Jimmy Butler didn't play in the second half. They still lost. They had 22, 23 turnovers or something like that. And I was kind of seeing that kind of Boston team show up today because of all those live ball turnovers we were talking about. The physicality for Boston's there, but the defensive tenacity of the Warriors was just better. It was better than what the Celtics brought tonight. And it's not like the Celtics played bad defensively. I think that the Warriors just capitalized in that whole second half. And, when you're not playing good offense, when your shots are not falling, it kind of takes energy out of your defense also sometimes. So, no, I agree. In Boston, you got to take the energy right away out of the building. You can't have these routine games where the Warriors tend to go out there, have these very slow starts, and it almost feels like they have to claw themselves back into a game, and they have to dominate in the third quarter to separate. While that's great, I don't want them to have to do that. I want them to be able to just take the energy right away from the first quarter and have a wire-to-wire victory. It's okay if the other team has some runs here or there, but just take control of the environment in that game. Take control of the environment in the building. If you can do that, you can dictate the game. You can dictate the way Boston has to play that night. If you do that twice, you should be okay. I don't want to be tied, like I said.
I'm going to use a boxing analogy here real quick. You have some fighters who kind of take the first couple rounds to just kind of gauge the opponent, get the timing down, figure out the tendencies. And that just seems like the Warriors pretty much throughout the playoffs. I mean, not even just the finals. You just look. They've had really slow starts. If they just come out, blitz them, 12-2, 13-4, whatever it is, just take the energy out of Boston, the crowd especially, just out, take the wind out of their sails. Come out, blitz them, and try to have Boston just have to use all their energy just to try to start coming back. These slow starts are just starting to get a little crazy. The Warriors are big, are smart enough, have the experience to be able to just come out and say, okay, lock down on defense right away. Boston does so much switching. I don't think it shouldn't affect the Warriors that much because they have such good defenders pretty much from top to bottom. Curry, you mentioned it, Chris, unbelievably spectacular defensively. Even on the other side, I mean, it was just incredible. He just staying in front of the man. He was there to, be ready to draw a charge if a guy got a little aggressive trying to drive down the paint, that sort of thing. But take the wind out of the sails early and have Boston play on their heels from start to finish. That's ideal. Hit shots, move the ball around. I'd like to see more ball movement. And I keep saying this, but keep pushing the pace. You have a lot of big men there. Robert Williams can't run up and down the court like a Clay or a Poole or even an Otto Porter. The Warriors are a very quick team. They can get out and run. They just need to use that to their advantage and have Udoka try to start calling timeouts just to give the players on the court time to rest. Because if the Warriors can start running back and forth, Boston has 7-8 guys that they play, and if you can just kind of get in there, get them into foul trouble like you did tonight, Boston's going to be on their heels throughout the rest of these finals, I believe.
So I wanted to ask you guys something. What do you think changed for Jordan Poole? Because I mean, his shots were going in. I mean, you saw him make a half court buzzer beater. The guy was on fire. That was another reason why I feel like we started to pull away as well. I think GP2 finally playing also gave a boost to all the players as well. So I just kind of want to get your take on the pool party. We started seeing a pool party tonight.
I think that in that third quarter, because it took them a long time to bring in Jordan Poole. I don't know if someone talked to him at halftime or what, but I think that he was aware probably after 6 quarters of playing that he was being a little passive. Like even when he was taking the ball to the basket in that first half, it looked like pretty weak. It looked slow. Like it didn't look like the explosive Jordan Poole, off that first step that we saw all year. Yeah. And I think that what also might have helped him feel more comfortable in being aggressive when he re-entered the game in the third was they were already on a run and they were already starting to pull away. So with only a few minutes to go to end that third quarter, when he came in, it felt like he had the green light. It didn't feel like, okay, there's a tie game or it's close in the fourth and Boston's making a run right now. Like the Warriors had all the momentum when he came into the game, and I think he just rode with that. But let's see if it actually translates in Boston. It's very possible that maybe he only played like that because they had a lead. Maybe, he is going to get a little tight if it is a closer game. I hope not, but I think that is probably those couple things. It's just being able to sit there and also probably realize, because he understands what his rotation is. He understands that, Steve Kerr definitely sat him for longer than usual, and there's a reason for that. And I think that he just wanted to respond to that moment because he's a guy who talks a lot of trash. If you look at the Damian Lillard interview, I think with Bill Simmons, he was talking about how the first time he really noticed Jordan Poole was the time where he was talking trash to him, and Jordan Poole's a rookie. Like this dude is he's someone who has that, I don't know what the word is for it, but he's not going to try to shy away from a moment, if that makes sense. He's not the type of dude to just kind of like sit back and play passively. I think that all that really was in the first game, it's not really him. It was just more, I'm in the NBA Finals. This is a crazy atmosphere because I've been in the building for those finals games. It's really, really different, even from the Western Conference Finals. I think that there was going to be some of that for Boston too. And maybe that happened tonight for Boston because they started to just look lifeless in that second half. Maybe that got to them a little bit. Because I thought game one, regardless, Boston, it being all their first NBA Finals, they're going to come out with loads of energy. They should be going 100 miles an hour at that point. And here, maybe that kind of simmered down a little bit. But with Jordan Poole, I think it was he knew he didn't play good in game one. He knew he wasn't playing good in the first half. And he understood, okay, now I have a little more comfortability here in terms of where my team is at. I'm going to take this step back three. I'm going to take the ball up to end this half, and I'm going to take this 39-foot three-pointer. He looked like he had different intensity. Even in the fourth, when you could call it garbage time, he was playing really fast, and you could say like maybe it was a little out of control, but it was a different type of Jordan Poole that I saw in game one, whereas he just looked scared, where he was making mistakes and not playing that aggressive. Like he looked like he was really trying to put his foot on the gas and not sit comfortably on the lead. So I think that he really took that game one lesson and just learned from it and just implemented that into his play in the second half. So I hope that's something that translates. I hope it's not just because they had a lead and he felt more comfortable. I want him to come into game three. Whenever he first checks in, I want to see him playing with that mentality of, I'm going to go to the basket. I'm going to take my man. I can beat anyone that is guarding me. I'm going to get myself to the line, or I'm going to get a finish at the rim. And I have the confidence to take these 3-pointers coming off screens, taking a step back, because that 7-shot Jordan Poole in game one, I did not like that because he was already making mistakes, already turning the ball over. Today, he was so much better in just about every single way.
Yeah, you heard Klay Thompson say during the media day yesterday that he did have a talk with JP and to basically, he told him to basically, calm down, relax, just pretend like it's just another regular game, because I mean, we could all tell that the guy was a little bit nervous because it was his first finals appearance and everything. So, um, Chris, I also wanted to ask you. I missed what you were saying in the 95.7 the game space. But what were you answering when I was like joining like the last part of your answer, and then you kind of went back down to listener. But what were you guys talking about before I joined?
Yeah, so I jumped in talking about a few things. One, I touched on a Steph Curry thing because they were talking about how Steph Curry plays great in these finals and always just gets trashed and never gets credit. And I was basically saying, like, it's interesting how double standard with Steph Curry, like Klay Thompson will have like a magnificent game 6 and we never stop talking about it. In terms of national media, like they never stop talking about it, right? Or they never stop like talking about like how Kevin Durant played in those finals. But then when Steph Curry has like game 7 in the Western Conference Finals, or like against OKC when he had that flurry, or if he drops 49 against the Raptors and averaged 30 in the series, like no one talks about it. It's weird. And people only ever highlight the bad moments, like, oh, he threw that behind the back pass out of bounds in the finals in 2016. Like that's all people. It's like people cherry pick that stuff, and I don't know what it is when it comes to Steph Curry, but I touched on that a little bit. But also just saying how the thing is, who's going to be stepping up to be the second option.
Exactly.
I think it has to be Klay. Now, if Jordan Poole steps up and takes that, fine. But either way, Klay Thompson needs to show up to be that counterpart to Steph Curry because Andrew Wiggins, although he didn't have as great a game offensively today that he did in game 1, and I'm not even saying like game 1 was great particularly, but it wasn't as good in terms of his point total. Andrew Wiggins shouldn't have to be the guy that they're looking to be the second option. He should be the third or fourth option, like third option at best. Like to me, it's Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Jordan Poole. Those are the three. And then Andrew Wiggins, everything he does, every 3-pointer he makes, every time he attacks the rim or gets a putback, that's icing on the cake. Andrew Wiggins should not have to be the second guy. So for me, I was talking about, can Jordan Poole continue this? Because he was really struggling in game 1 and he woke up, but also, is Klay Thompson going to show up? Because if Klay Thompson doesn't show up, I don't want to get to a point where we're sitting here hoping Steph Curry can just backpack this team to a bunch of wins. Because if we get to that point, like I was saying, I think I said it here earlier too, Steph Curry is someone you can take out a lot easier than someone who's like 6'10" and can get a shot from anywhere because he is smaller. So the reality is if you want to double him, if you want to blitz him, and your thing is, okay, we're going to make someone else beat us, that's when Klay needs to hit shots. That's when Jordan Poole needs to hit shots. That's when Andrew Wiggins, if he's in the corner, is a plus, or Otto Porter Jr. But they need a consistent threat on the offensive end. They need a consistent threat hitting perimeter shots. And to me, Klay Thompson, tonight he was forcing the issue a little bit. I do like that Steve Kerr left him in late in the game because he wanted him to get his rhythm and also just get some misses out of the way. Because the more you keep shooting, at some point you're going to find it. So yeah, I was just kind of touching on, the consistency and then the Warriors finding a second option because tonight, if you look at the point spread, it was Steph Curry and Poole, and after that, it was like little sprinkles here and there of a few people, and then game 1, obviously, we all know what happened there. So that's my biggest thing. If they get if Klay, and I said there if Klay is hitting his shots and Jordan Poole is getting 17, 18 tonight, it's over. There's no way Boston's going to beat that team as long as they're playing the way that they should defensively. There's no way.
Yeah, you want to add anything else, Corey?
Yeah, I was going to actually go back to the Jordan Poole thing. You were asking Chris a question. I see Jordan Poole a lot like Klay Thompson, where they're very streaky. So if you can get Jordan Poole to start, or when he doesn't start games now, but when he first comes in, if he can see the first few shots go in, even if it's just a mid-range, 10, 15 feet away, it gives him the confidence. He kind of sees, okay, there's a rotation tonight. This is how this should happen. And then he can kind of go on that flurry like we've seen with Klay, obviously, like we've seen with Steph over his illustrious career. But I agree with Chris. I mean, Chris has been spot on pretty much with every point that he's made tonight. If Klay can even be, 75% of what we're used to seeing, where you can just drop your 15 or 20 points a night, play, the lockdown defense. I know he doesn't have that lateral movement like he did before the injury, Boston's going to be in more trouble than they already are. It's just the harsh reality. The defense has been there, and you're going to get to that point where, you can double Steph, but then you're going to be leaving Clay and Poole and maybe an Otto Porter or Andrew Wiggins open, and it's their job to just be able to hit those open shots. It doesn't have to be from the 24 feet. It can just be little mid-ranges, backdoor cuts. But, exactly what Chris said. Get Clay going a little bit more. Get his 15, 20 points a night. And then, get your contributions from hopefully Poole can kind of get this as a confidence booster going into game 3 and 4. I love what I see at Otto Porter. Gary Payton put on some really good minutes coming back. And that's the other thing. I mean, Payton, his defense is it's so underrated. It's unbelievable. And he can guard 1 through 5 if he has to. Yes, he's undersized. Boston should be able to exploit that with whoever he's guarding to just post him up. I think he'll struggle a little bit with that. But all in all, the Warriors should win this series. And they should win this series in 5 or 6. If they execute, they don't turn the ball over. 12 turnovers tonight. That's fine. Force Boston into those turnovers like you did tonight, the 18, 19 turnovers. Get out in transition, hit your open shots, and just have, all in all, just have Boston playing on their heels, using and exerting all of their energy that they have, the limited amount of energy that they have because they don't have the bench. Take care of it. I think, Warriors fans are a little nervous after game 1. They just, they blew, the fourth quarter lead and just couldn't get it going. Hopefully this is a momentum. I know we have another 2 days off. These finals just drag and drag and drag. It's just, it's absolutely insane. But come out of the blocks early, get Boston to a big deficit, and see what Adoko does to adjust and things like that, and get them in foul trouble. Just be able to force them to not be able to play as aggressive. It'll be interesting to see how the officiating is called. Are there going to be those ticky-tack fouls? I think in the first 2 games, at least what I've seen, I think they've allowed them to play a lot, which is the way they should, especially in an NBA Finals. I think they should be doing that throughout the NBA season, but especially in the finals, you got to be able to just let them play a little bit, work things out. I know Draymond and Grant Williams were tussling it up there a little bit. I think that's the point you were about to make. The Warriors are deeper. The Warriors, I think, are as good, if not a better defensive team, and they have more scores. So the ball is in their court. They just have to be able to go out and execute and see how Boston reacts and adjusts.
Yeah. No, I agree. So I'm going to pull up some of the podium reviews real quick. The first one's with Steph Curry, and then I'm going to talk about Klay Thompson afterwards. So let's check it out. Boom.
I mean, it's always been a point of emphasis in terms of trying to win ball games and do your job. Over the course of my career, it's been a physical development that's happened over time that obviously helps. A lot of work that's gone into that. But at the end of the day, from my rookie year to now, it's always been about effort and just a care factor, overcoming physical limitations or with matchups or whatever it is. If you try hard, good things will happen, and you'll continue to get better. So it's always been a point of emphasis.
Howard on the
just
right.
better at it now. I mean, it's always been.
Against a good team, they're not going to waver. They're going to continue to play their game, whether it's going their way or not. Last game, it was the same thing. Like, I thought we were playing great and we didn't create much separation. Then we did. Difference was we gave it back. Tonight we didn't want to give it back, but ultimately, we always talk about playing 48 minutes, and if we do that, we feel like they'll break at some point, not just them, just over the course of a season. If we can put a good 48 minutes together, you trust in that work, and hopefully they'll break, and we were able to pull ahead tonight.
Sam.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, you know, when you're playing against
trying to do that to him for years. You know, it's not his first time where guys try to beat up on him and be physical with him. And, you know, we kind of know how to play against that. Just got to execute. I think we did a good job of screening for him and getting him open looks. He did a great job of drawing the crowd and getting off the ball. And I was able to convert off around the rim off some assists from Steph. So, you know, guys are going to try to be physical with him, but, you know, he's been used to it. He's a lot stronger than he used to be. He's been making shots. You know, he knows that sometimes he's gonna have to sacrifice. You know, not get as many looks sometimes to find us. And I think he did a good job of balancing out today.
Yeah, I mean, you know, Steph was breathtaking in that quarter. Not just the shot making, but the defensive effort. He just doesn't get enough credit for his level of conditioning and physicality and defense. You know, people go at him to try to wear him down because they know how important he is to us offensively. And it's pretty dramatic, the difference in Steph's strength and physicality and his body now than from, you know, 8 years ago when I first got here. So the guy's amazing. He just keeps working on his game, his strength, his conditioning year after year. And it's a pleasure to watch him play every night.
Tim on the right.
Yeah, I mean,
we knew our backs were against the wall. We couldn't go into Boston being down 2-0, so he lit the fire under us. And as this whole season, he lit it and everybody else follows. And tonight was one of those big nights that everybody responded. Absolutely.
Did it hurt when you fell, you know, on that, I guess, transition?
No.
Did you fall on the left elbow?
I tried to tuck and roll as best I could.
Does the elbow hurt when you're out there playing?
No, I don't. It's adrenaline. We're just going.
How about the three from the corner? I mean, how much have you been able to shoot over the last couple of weeks with your left arm?
Quite a lot.
Okay.
It looks pretty good, doesn't it?
You hit it.
Gosh, there we go.
Couple ones.
I think that is it. So there's a couple interviews right there. So I mean, you guys heard their answers and everything. What do you take from it, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, Steve Kerr was talking about defense from Steph Curry. I've been saying that since the game ended. It was a really awesome effort to see from Steph. And Corey, earlier you were mentioning like tiring out the Celtics, and that's why I've been kind of saying like this is a different kind of team that Boston's playing. Like this is not Jimmy Butler. This is not, you know, the Brooklyn Nets team that's really like ISO heavy. This is a team that's going to be constantly moving around. Steph Curry moves the most off the ball in the entire league. He's one of the most conditioned athletes in the world. And with this Boston team, the reason I thought they would originally go up 2-0 on Boston was because I thought in game one, a team that's never been in the finals was going to be going 100 miles an hour. You know, like this is a huge moment. They're going to come in with all the energy. They understand that they're playing a team that's very experienced in the finals. They're on the road. Like I thought, okay, game one, they're going to use all their energy in the first quarter. They're going to jump the Warriors a little bit in the first, and then they would get tired. Whereas they got to the fourth, and then they just couldn't miss a shot, and the Warriors looked kind of dead in the water, where I think maybe we saw a little bit of that today because Jaylen Brown came out of the gates firing. Jason Tatum started out amazing. I thought he was going to drop 45 points tonight. And I think maybe you saw, like, as the Warriors' defensive intensity picked up, they had just had a more consistent energy throughout the game. And I think that's where you kind of probably started to see that Celtics team start to get a little tired out because, like, Steph Curry's conditioning allows him to still be that threat on offense, but also you can see him on defense picking up his intensity level. Like, Steph Curry plays hard on defense and he tries, but it was different. Like, I don't ever like watch a Warriors game and think like, wow, Steph Curry's defense in this quarter. Like, that rarely happens throughout a year that I start to really see that. But it was very obvious to anyone who was paying attention in that quarter how much energy he was using. He was staying in front of Pritchard like one-on-one in an ISO situation. He's running down the to the paint to try to like swipe at Al Horford or get in passing lanes. He was everywhere. He was kind of like trying to be like, do what Gary Payton does, who's just everywhere, always trying to make a play on the ball. And I think Gary Payton actually helped with a lot of that energy, because I don't know how healthy the guy actually is. And obviously he was talking there saying that he feels pretty good, but the adrenaline's helping not feel the pain. But either way, he's out there, he's running, he's getting out in transition, he's getting those passing lanes. He looks like he's still playing with the same energy level that Gary Payton plays with healthy. So I think that you do see a lot of that. And Draymond was talking about, you know, the course of 48 minutes. I think that consistency and that energy level is what we saw tonight. And I think that's where Boston might struggle a little bit without that finals experience going up against a team like this. So I'm really confident going into game 3 just because of what I was able to see energy wise alone. I don't expect Boston to shoot the way that they did in game 1 of the fourth quarter. Jason Tatum, although I expect him to have good games, I think that we saw Jaylen Brown come down to earth a little bit. I think we definitely saw Marcus Smart come down to earth because he had like 18 in game 1 or something like that. You know, how much longer are they going to expect contribution from guys like Derek White off the bench? You know what I mean? So if they can just continue that energy level and not tire themselves out, not allow Boston to control the tempo, essentially, they're in really good shape. If they can just go into game 3 right out of the gates, control the tempo, control the pace of the game, and make Boston try to play their style of basketball, they should be fine. I think they'll come back to Chase Center up 3-1.
Yeah, just to piggyback off that as well, foul trouble. They got Boston into foul trouble pretty early, and I think that, A, frustrated them, but 2, just exerting a lot of energy. So by the time you get into that second half, even though you have the 15, 16 minutes of rest, the Warriors can just come out and score in bunches. And it's just, there's not a lot that I've been able to find an opponent to be able to do about it, as long as the Warriors are executing and not making stupid, dumb mistakes, including turnovers or just, turnovers. I'm trying to think of another example there. But the Warriors just need to be more aggressive. And I think you saw that today, at least from what I saw in the second quarter on. But go at them. Force them to make a move to either foul you, try to take a charge, or hope that someone's coming, backdoor for like a double team or something. The Warriors have the tools. They have the horses here to be able to really put Boston on their heels for the remainder of this series. It's just a matter of how well they're going to be able to execute, not turning the ball over, giving Boston extra possessions, and allowing Boston to try to control the pace back to their slow, rugged, just sort of, just walk the ball up the court and shoot with 2 or 3 seconds left in the shot clock. There was a couple shot clock violations that the Warriors had, I think, there in the third quarter as well. That's huge because it just takes all the air out of Boston there. Boston, to me, is still in a lot of trouble here, and it's just it's just going to come down to if the Warriors can execute or not.
Yeah, I mean, Boston makes a lot of mistakes. Like, I'm pretty sure their average turnovers per game, both these teams are almost identical. So as long as you're executing your game, if you're operating your offense the way you want to, if you're controlling the tempo, Boston's going to make mistakes too. Like tonight, the Warriors just took way better care of the basketball. So
better shot selection as well.
Yeah, you can expect Boston to make some mistakes. Like that's why I pointed to that game in Miami. Or I don't remember if it was in Miami, but it was against Miami when Jimmy Butler wasn't in the game in the second half. The 23 turnovers, like they should have won that game against Miami. They lost by like 6 points. But if you have 23 turnovers, I don't care what team you're playing. You're just going to give NBA players, the best players in the world, a chance to beat you. So, you know what I mean? Just execute. Just operate your offense the way you want to. And I think that when it came to that third quarter, we could really see like Steph Curry. He does look different ever since 2019 when it comes to playing in the finals. Now, I'm not saying that he never like played good in the other finals, but it seemed like ever since 2019, like when KD went out, that was the first time he was really like entering like a phase where he's in the prime of his career and he's trying to carry his team in that type of series. Like, remember when he kind of came off that screen? I think Otto Porter set the screen and it was like on the right wing, but it was deep and he took that three. I was like, when he took that, I was like, oh my gosh, sometimes this guy's like a psychopath. Like, how are you expecting to take that shot in a close game or in a game like with this magnitude? And he's just done such an amazing job stepping up. I mean, he's probably going to end up averaging like 31, 32 in this series. It's just about who else is going to step up on the side.
So going off of that, I kind of want to share this video because they actually asked about this when KD left. It all basically started with Steph Curry, and Draymond answered the question to this. So let's check it out real quick.
Feels like this is a little bit different, at least through these first couple of games. It's a lot of Steph, and then just trying to find where the rest of that offense comes from. Are you guys feeling that? Is this going to have to be done a different way?
Oh, well, I think our offense is always a lot of Steph. It all starts with Steph. Whether, when KD was here, our offense still started with Steph. And, that's the way it's going to be.
Feels like this is a little.
So, I mean, it's basically what you just said, Chris. So I just thought it was perfect time to show what Draymond said.
Yeah, because I mean, like, Steph Curry was great like in 2014, 2015, 2016, but like people don't really realize that this dude had a really late prime. Like, he hit his prime really late. I mean, if you look at Steph, like, Steph's been great this year, but if you look at Steph Curry last year, if that Steph Curry was playing right now, this series would not even be close. I mean, that dude was averaging almost 40 in the month of April. That, like, he actually did have a better singular season last year than he did in 2016. Like, he's still gotten better for so many years late in his career, like at a time where most guys would probably start declining. There are even times where with Kevin Durant, I think it was the 2018 season, like the beginning of the year, I think Steph Curry was like averaging 30, leading the league in scoring, and people were like, is this dude actually an MVP candidate with Kevin Durant on his team? Because people were starting to have the argument like, wait, this guy averaging this many points with Kevin Durant on his team is actually extremely impressive. So, yeah, I mean, it's great to see. And listen, that's another thing. I really want the Warriors to win the series, and I really want him to get that Finals MVP just to put that to rest so people cannot, like, you can no longer say the Finals MVP argument because, first of all, we know he was robbed in 2015, but you just can't even bring it up now if he has one. You know what I mean? And if you continue to try to bring that up afterwards, then you're just going to make yourself look like an idiot.
Especially at the age that he's at now.
Yeah.
It's 34.
So before we end it here, I just kind of want to go over Klay Thompson a little bit. What does Klay have to do to start basically, contribute to the game? Because, I mean, I feel like the past two games, he hasn't really looked as good. Do you think it's because of Boston's defense, or do you think it's because he's actually really struggling?
I think it's both. I think it's a little both. I think that Klay he's kind of been a wild card sometimes this year, but I give him some slack because I understand this year was really about him trying to condition himself back into playing basketball. So you come back in January, you're on minutes restriction for a while, and all of a sudden now, because he came back midway through the season on minutes restriction, now you're in the NBA Finals. Like, you're playing playoff basketball. You're playing a team like Memphis, and that's just a lot to ask for a guy who hasn't played in 2 years coming off two long-term injuries. So I think that right now, I think sometimes he does have a bit of a conditioning struggle because sometimes he looks like he's the old Klay on defense, and then sometimes it looks like there's no way he can keep up with the guys. So I think that sometimes that energy level might be a little inconsistent, and that kind of leaves him with whatever he has left on offense. But I think also Boston's defense is playing a part in that and probably tiring him out because of how physical, how tight they're playing. You look at the way that they're even trying to guard Steph Curry. It's really hard for Steph Curry to get some looks sometimes too. And Klay Thompson's not the ball handler either. So it's just going to be tougher in general for him to get looks because he does want to operate more off the ball and getting looks off the catch. I think he just needs to let the game come to him. He's taking a lot of these 1 foot leaning fadeaways from mid range and falling away. And while I understand he can get those shots up, I think that if he just lets possessions operate, lets the ball keep moving around, just make another pass, make another simple pass, and just see if it comes back to you. I think he'll be fine there. He was forcing the issue quite a bit. And I'm talking like before the fourth quarter when they left him in there to get his rhythm. There were some
Yeah.
shots he was taking. Like remember that one play where Kevon Looney got an offensive rebound near the corner and he gave it out to Clay. They probably had another like 10 seconds on the shot clock or something, but he turns and tries to attempt a three. Like there were times where he was forcing it, and he's just kind of pressing the issue. And he's done that this year too. Like when he was coming back, he was pressing the issue a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think this is all still Clay getting used to being back playing NBA basketball. I mean, there's a lot of guys in the league this year he's been playing up against that he's never played before that have
That's
been
true.
around for a couple of years. Like it was the first time he's played Ja Morant, for instance, like this year. So I think he's trying to reestablish like his place in the league still, which is why next year I look more at Klay Thompson, really start to see where he's at because he'll have a whole off season. He'll be conditioned, ready to go from opening tip off. Whereas right now, this team was getting used to playing together. He was getting used to playing back or getting back to playing basketball this year. So I think that just let the game come to you. You know, like just let it come to you. Like if you look at the 60-point game he had against the Pacers, it was just off-ball movement constantly. He was letting the opportunities come to him, lots of cutting, lots of open shots he was getting. Whereas now, if there's tight defense, don't feel like you have to get a shot up just because you feel like you can hit it. And I understand Klay Thompson. Like I don't ever want to tell the guy, don't shoot. I just don't believe that with guys that are that great of shooters. But there are times where you do have to pick and choose. Like I can take this shot, but there's 14 seconds on the shot clock. I have other good offensive players on the floor with me. Let me make a simple pass and see what happens. You know, just pass and cut again. That's my thing.
Corey, want to piggyback off of that?
Yeah, just the only thing I want to add is kind of what I said earlier. In when he started the game and he has the ball, just see the first couple shots go in, and I think it's just like I said, he's very streaky, kind of has that Glenn Rice to him, where he's a great shooter, but he has to see a few go in to kind of see the rotation, see the form that he's using, and take that and then try to get into that rhythm and get into that game 6 Clay cliche that we keep referencing back to. But all in all, I think he's just rushing shots. I think he's just trying to get into a rhythm in a way that he doesn't really have to, especially when you have Steph handling the ball, getting double teamed. He's going to be open. It's not like he's going to be trying to shoot over double teams, at least up front. If he starts hitting some shots, maybe they move the emphasis over to him instead of Steph, which just opens a whole new bag of tricks that the Warriors can play with. Steph is just going to be Steph. As far as I'm concerned, if the Warriors win this series, he's going to be the MVP anyway. But to get Clay going, he just needs to see his first couple of shots go in, even if it's a layup here, a little mid-range here, running floater like we've seen him make this season. Whatever it is, just don't force it. He doesn't need to take the 16, 17 shots that he is to go 4 of 17. He just needs to maybe start small, work 5, 10 feet, move it out to 15 feet, 18 feet, get behind the line. I mean, he had the three that he did hit in transition, beautiful, but you got to be able to see more shots go in, get into a rhythm earlier. Warriors are going to be nearly impossible to beat.
Yeah, I agree heavily with the layups point. That's why I was mentioning the Pacers 60-point game. You got a lot of layups in that game, just moving off the ball.
Yeah.
Obviously, finals defense is different, but if they can get him some opportunities on a back cut where they can get him some layups, or maybe even just get him to the free throw line, and you get to watch those fall, that's going to help him just settle back in and just kind of find that stroke again. I mean, either way, he's going to find it again. I hope he finds it quickly. I don't want it to be one of those things where we're like 2-2 and he finally finds it in game 5. I'd rather you find it in game 3 and just take it the rest of the series on the road, because guys that are not the star players, and I'm not saying Clay's not a star, but every shot that non-star players get matters so much more. Like if you're someone who gets like 8 shots a game, a miss is just more crucial, and a make is just that much bigger of an impact. And role players usually play better at home. So I don't know how the role players are going to answer in Boston. I expect them to still show up, but that's where Clay, being that second option, if you can show up, that can cancel out any Like if Otto Porter cools off or something, that'll cancel that out tremendously in a better way. Because if Clay's a guy who's just that threat and he can drop 20, doesn't have to be like 26 or anything like that, but if he can just drop a solid 20, which is what he averaged this year, however he can get it, even if the percentage is a little bit lower. Like Steph's percentage is a little bit, lower right now, but that's because that's just finals defense. Steph Curry's a smaller player. If he can just provide that level of production, they're going to be fine.
And then as well, if they could just make their layups more too and score a lot more in the paint. I mean, I know they scored 40 in the paint compared to Boston's 24, but I mean, just like in the last series, they were scoring like 60 in the paint a lot.
Yeah.
So that's how they were winning their games. So I think if they could go back to like that somehow, I think that will help too, especially in Boston.
Yeah, definitely.
We're gonna be wrapping up right now. Is there any last thoughts you guys want to put out there before we head out?
Just magic number is 30. Try to get to those 30 assists a game. Makes it nearly impossible for any opponent, finals or not, to beat you. Ball movements there. And then, I'm just kind of reiterating here. Turnovers by Boston have to be executed into points somehow, even if it's going into a foul and then a couple free throws. So it's just one of those things. Sorry about that. One of those things that they have to just capitalize on mistakes by Boston. Boston's going to force the Warriors into some mistakes. But you look at a handful of those turnovers, it was just lockdown defense. Player with the ball, whoever it was, White or whoever, trying to throw the ball out, hoping that the guy's there. Warriors intercept it, and start heading the other way. More of that, get Boston out of the rhythm, get the crowd out of the game early, and have Boston do everything that they can to try to jump back into the game while playing on the heels.
Yeah. No, like last thing for me is start out the game well, right? Like come out of the gates firing. Don't wait for like the second half to make an adjustment and like you got to have a monster third quarter. Be able to come right in on, right in the beginning of the game. The way Jaylen Brown came out tonight, basically, and Jason Tatum came out. Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Jordan Poole, whoever's in the game, Andrew Wiggins, come out with that level of intensity, take control of the building. Don't let the crowd start to have too much fun. And because I do expect the Celtics to play better at home, even though I know that statistically, like if you look at the analytics, they're a better road team. But just because role players tend to play better at home, I expect them to be more comfortable at least. So if you can take that comfortability right out of the building immediately, you can take control of the game immediately, just the rest of the 48 minutes.
Love to see a 15-4 run right out of the chute. Just put Boston on their heels early.
Yep.
Yeah. So we'll be live again during or not during, but after Game 3 on Wednesday night. I believe it's a 5:30 game.
Nope, 6.
6.
Is it 6?
Oh, 6. Okay. Everything is 6 except Sunday. If there's a Game 7, will be 5 o'clock again. No, okay, 5:30 games. You're getting mixed. You're getting mixed up with the Eastern Conference Final.
Gotcha. Okay, so we'll be live after the game, and then we'll go from there. If you haven't yet already, go over the formalities real quick. Go over to the YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button. If you haven't yet already, we really appreciate it. Go over to our Twitch, twitch.tv/LockedInGSW Podcast. If you haven't yet already, go over to our Twitter page at GSW_podcast and hit that follow button for all your Dubs news. Instagram, Locked In GSW Podcast, spelled all the way out. We are constantly updating that page every single day, especially during the finals. So go ahead and go over there and hit that follow button on there. And then our Facebook page as well, spelled all the way out, Locked In GSW Podcast, and you'll find all our content on there as well. Other than that, if y'all have nothing else to say, I think we'll end it here. That it? Everybody good?
All good. Let's just get a game 3 win.
Yes, sir.
Just waiting for Wednesday. That's it.
Yep. Until next time, Dub Nation, go Dubs. Peace.